Jiho pressed his fingers against his temples and wondered why he had agreed to this trip. His head hurt from the cheap station wine he had drunk the night before, and his feet ached from walking through endless corridors of the Celestial Archive Station. The place was massive, bigger than any city on Earth, and it orbited a dead planet that nobody cared about anymore. Except for one thing. The temple. His sister Hana walked 3 steps ahead of him, her camera bouncing against her chest as she moved. She talked without stopping, pointing at every alien species they passed, reading facts from her tablet about the station's history. Jiho had stopped listening after the first hour. He just wanted to get back to his cargo ship, finish his repairs, and leave this place. But Hana had begged him. "Just one day," she said. "Just come see the famous temple before you go. It will be amazing," she said. Nothing felt amazing right now. Everything felt too bright and too loud. They rounded another corner and suddenly the crowd thickened. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species packed together, all looking in the same direction. Jiho could see it now. The Temple of First Light. Even through his hangover, he had to admit it looked impressive. 2 enormous gates rose from the floor, taller than any building he had ever seen. They were made of something that looked like gold but shifted colors in the light, showing purple and blue and green all at once. Strange symbols covered every surface, symbols that hurt his eyes when he tried to read them. A tall crystalline being stood near the gates, its body reflecting light in all directions. It wore robes that seemed to float without wind. Hana whispered that this was Varix, the temple keeper. The creature had guarded these gates for 300 years. 300 years of watching people try and fail to open them. Jiho found a spot away from the crowd and leaned against a barrier. He watched Hana join a tour group, her excitement making her bounce on her feet like a child. The guide, a floating orb with too many eyes, spoke in a voice that translated into everyone's native language. "For 10,000 galactic cycles, these gates have remained sealed," the guide said. "Legends tell us that only beings of pure legendary status may open them. Gods, warriors who conquered entire galaxies, beings who transcended death itself. Thousands have tried. Emperors have placed their hands on these gates. War heroes who saved billions have stood here. Ancient artificial intelligences have attempted to hack the locks. Psychic masters have thrown their full mental power at the seals. All have failed," Jiho yawned. Tourist nonsense, he thought. Probably just stuck with old locks. He had fixed enough broken doors on cargo ships to know that ancient technology usually just meant broken technology. The crowd pressed forward, and Jiho found himself pushed closer to the gates. Someone's elbow hit his ribs. A scaled alien stepped on his foot. He grumbled and tried to move back, but the crowd had swelled behind him. Great, just great. He was trapped in a sea of pilgrims and tourists, all wanting to take pictures of doors that didn't open. Hana appeared next to him, her face flushed with excitement. "Isn't this incredible? Can you imagine what might be inside? Some people think it's the secret to immortality. Others say it contains weapons that could destroy stars. And look at Varix. He's been here since before Mom was born." "It's a door," Jiho said. "A very old, very stuck door." "You have no sense of wonder," Hana said, but she was smiling. She knew her brother too well to expect anything different. The tour guide continued its speech, but Jiho had stopped listening. His head pounded worse now, and the crowd's noise was like needles in his skull. He just needed to rest for a moment. Just lean against something solid and close his eyes until the tour ended. Then they could leave, and he could get back to his ship. He looked around for somewhere to rest. The barriers were too low. The floor was too crowded. But there, just a few steps away, the temple gates themselves rose up solid and huge. The crowd stayed back from them, respectful or afraid. Nobody touched them directly. Perfect. He could lean there without anyone bothering him. Jiho pushed through the last few tourists and reached the gates. Up close, they were even more impressive. The symbols seemed to move slightly, though that might have been his hangover. The surface felt warm, which was strange for metal or stone or whatever it was. He didn't care. It was solid and it was there. He turned his back to the gates and leaned against them, closing his eyes with relief. Finally, peace, just for a minute, just until Hana finished taking her pictures. The warmth from the gates increased. Then it got hot, really hot. Jiho opened his eyes and tried to step forward, but something held him in place. The symbols on the gates blazed with light, bright enough to blind. He heard screaming. Or maybe that was him screaming. The entire gate shook, and a sound like thunder rolled through the chamber. Then he was falling backward as the gates swung open behind him. Jiho hit the floor hard, knocking the air from his lungs. He lay there gasping, staring up at a ceiling that now showed stars that shouldn't exist. Around him, the screaming got louder. Not his screaming. Everyone's screaming. He sat up slowly, his body aching from the fall. The temple gates stood open behind him, actually open. Light poured out from inside, bright and golden and impossible. After 10,000 years, the gates had opened. No, someone whispered. Jiho turned and saw Varric standing frozen, its crystalline body reflecting the light from the temple. No, this cannot be. This is not possible. Hana pushed through the crowd and grabbed Jiho's arm. What did you do? What did you do? I just leaned on it, Jiho said. His voice sounded strange in his own ears. I was tired. I just leaned on the door. Alarms started blaring throughout the station. Security drones appeared from every direction, their lights flashing red. The crowd surged backward and forward at the same time, some trying to run, others trying to get closer. Cameras flashed like lightning. The floating tour guide spun in circles, its eyes blinking in patterns that suggested serious computer errors. Ambassador Taiyang arrived within minutes, his face pale and sweating. He wore human diplomatic robes, but they were twisted and wrong, like he had dressed in a hurry. He probably had. This was probably the biggest crisis the station had seen in decades. Nobody move, Taiyang shouted. Everyone stay calm. We need to secure this area immediately. But nobody was calm. A religious leader from the Keithian Empire fell to its knees and started praying in a language that made the air shimmer. Scientists rushed forward with scanning equipment. Reporters from 50 different species screamed questions in 50 different languages. And through it all, Jiho sat on the floor next to the open gates, his headache now much worse, wondering how leaning against a door had turned into the biggest disaster of his life. I just wanted to rest, he said to nobody in particular. I just wanted to rest for 1 minute. Barracks approached slowly, its movements uncertain for the first time in 3 centuries. It looked at Jiho with eyes that held something between wonder and terror. Who are you? The temple keeper asked. Jiho thought about the question. Who was he? A mechanic. A divorced guy in his 30s. Someone who drank too much cheap wine and complained about his lower back pain. Someone who just wanted to fix his ship and go home. Nobody, he said finally. I'm nobody important. But as security forces surrounded him and Hana held his hand tight, as the entire galaxy watched through 1,000 camera feeds, Jiho understood that his answer didn't matter anymore. The gates had decided. The temple had chosen. And whether he was nobody or somebody, everything had just changed forever. The quarantine room was white and cold and small. Jiho sat on a medical bed while machines hummed around him, scanning every part of his body. They had been scanning him for 6 hours now. Blood tests, genetic tests, neural mapping, energy field analysis, tests he didn't understand with names he couldn't pronounce. Every test came back the same way. Normal. Completely. Absolutely. Impossibly normal. Dr. Minji stood across the room, staring at her tablet with the kind of frustration that came from answers that made no sense. She was a xenoanthropologist, someone who studied how different species thought and acted. The station had called her in from a research posting 3 systems away. She had arrived expecting to find something extraordinary. Instead, she found Jiho. Run the genetic scan again, she said to her assistant. We've run it 5 times, the assistant replied. The results don't change. He's human. Standard genetic markers. No modifications. No hidden alien DNA. No dormant psychic abilities. His family tree goes back 300 years on Earth, and every single ancestor was equally unremarkable. Minji threw her tablet onto a desk. Then explain to me how he opened gates that have rejected demigods and emperors. Jiho raised his hand slightly. Can I go now? My ship needs repairs and I'm already behind schedule. Your ship, Minji said slowly, is the least important thing in the galaxy right now. Do you understand what's happening out there? Every major government has sent representatives. Religious leaders are calling this the prophesied moment. Scientists are tearing apart every theory about the temple. And you want to fix your ship? Yes, Jiho said. I have a contract. If I'm late, I lose money. Minji looked at him like he had grown a second head. Maybe that would have made more sense to her. At least a 2-headed human would be interesting. The door opened and Hana rushed in. followed by 2 security guards who tried unsuccessfully to stop her. She hugged Jiho hard enough to hurt. "Are you okay?" "They wouldn't let me see you." "I've been waiting outside for hours. Taeyang keeps making announcements, but nobody knows what's happening." "I'm fine," Jiho said. "Just tired. And they keep taking my blood." A security officer entered next. Her name was Sora, and she was human like them. But she looked like she had forgotten how to smile years ago. She had the kind of face that suggested she saw conspiracies everywhere, and was usually right. "We've analyzed the security footage 50 times, Sora said. "No tricks. No hidden technology. No accomplices. You literally just leaned against the gates and they opened, which is impossible. So either our security system is broken or reality is broken." "Maybe the gates just broke," Jiho offered. "Old things break all the time. I fix broken things for a living. Trust me, age makes everything malfunction eventually." Sora looked at him with the kind of look that could melt steel. "Those gates have stood for 10,000 years. They've survived system-wide wars. They've resisted attempts by beings that could reshape matter with their thoughts. But they broke the exact moment you touched them." "That's your theory? Bad luck?" Jiho tried. Before Sora could respond, the room's main screen activated. A hologram appeared showing 9 figures seated in a semicircle. The Council of 9. Representatives of the galaxy's eldest and most powerful species. Beings that normally never bothered with individual human affairs. They all looked at Jiho with expressions ranging from curiosity to anger, to something that might have been fear. The central figure spoke. Its voice was like rocks grinding together. "We have reviewed all evidence. We have consulted our oldest records. The Temple of First Light has never responded to anyone unworthy of legend status, yet you claim to be an ordinary mechanic. Explain this contradiction." Jiho felt very small suddenly. These were beings that had existed for thousands of years, that ruled over star systems, that made decisions affecting trillions of lives, and they wanted him to explain something he didn't understand. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I really don't know. I was just tired." Another council member leaned forward. This one looked like it was made of living water, constantly shifting and flowing. "Perhaps humans possess abilities they don't recognize. Perhaps your species has evolved capabilities you consider normal but are actually extraordinary." "I'm really not that special," Jiho said. "Ask anyone who knows me. I'm late on my rent. My ex-wife says I never listen. I can't cook anything except instant noodles. I'm scared of spiders. Last month I locked myself out of my ship and had to call for help. I'm the opposite of special." The council members looked at each other. Silent communication passed between them in ways humans couldn't detect. Finally, the rock-voiced leader spoke again. "We must understand this. If humans can open the temple, we must know why. We must know what makes you worthy when gods are not." The hologram ended. Jiho looked at Hana, who squeezed his hand. "This is insane," he whispered. "I just wanted to visit the stupid temple and leave." Minji approached them, her expression softer now. "I know this is overwhelming, but try to understand. The temple has been the greatest mystery in the galaxy for 10,000 years. Civilizations have risen and fallen waiting for those gates to open, and now they have. Because of you. That means something." "It means I have terrible luck," Jiho said. The next 3 days became a blur of tests and questions and people staring at him. Scientists from every major species arrived on the station. They scanned him. They interviewed him. They analyzed his childhood, his dreams, his habits, his favorite foods. They found nothing unusual. An ancient scholar named Keltar arrived on the 4th day. The being was old beyond measure, its body held together by technology and determination. It had studied the temple for 500 years and knew more about it than anyone alive. Keltar asked Jiho one question. "When you touched the gates, what did you feel?" Jiho thought about it. Warm, then hot, then surprised. "What did you think?" "That I wanted to stop falling." "Not about destiny? Not about worthiness? Not about the weight of legend?" "No," Jiho said. "I thought, this is going to hurt when I hit the ground." And it did. Keltar made a sound like laughing and crying at the same time. "Perhaps that's it." Perhaps that's the answer we've all missed. But before anyone could ask what that meant, alarms started blaring again. Not security alarms this time. Something worse. The temple itself was making noise, a deep thrumming sound that shook the entire station. Everyone rushed to the main viewing area. The temple gates still stood open, but now light poured from inside, brighter than before. And symbols appeared in the air above the gates, symbols that even the translation computers struggled with. But they managed one phrase, one terrible phrase. The worthy one must enter within 10 cycles or the temple will purge itself. Silence fell over the crowd. Then everyone started talking at once. Purge? Hana whispered. What does that mean? Minji pulled up data on her tablet, her face going pale. The temple contains enough energy to vaporize this entire station. Maybe the whole planet below. If it self-destructs, millions will die. Everyone turned to look at Jiho. He understood what they wanted. What they expected. He had opened the gates, so now he had to go inside. He had to enter the temple and face whatever waited there. Him. The guy who got scared of spiders. The guy who couldn't even open a jar of pickles without asking for help sometimes. No, he said quietly. No, I'm not doing this. Get someone else. Get a hero or a warrior or someone who knows what they're doing. The temple chose you, Varric said. The temple keeper had barely moved since the gates opened, standing in the same spot like a statue of shock. We cannot change what has been chosen. Then the temple made a mistake, Jiho said. Machines make mistakes, even really old ones. Taeyang approached, his diplomatic mask cracking to show genuine fear. Jiho, please. I know this isn't fair. I know you didn't ask for this. But there are 2 million beings on this station. Families, children. If the temple destroys itself, I know. Jiho cut him off. He knew, of course he knew. He could do math. 2 million lives versus his fear. It wasn't really a choice at all. He looked at Hana, his little sister who believed in adventure and legends and all the things he had stopped believing in years ago. She had tears in her eyes. Don't go, she said. We'll find another way. But they both knew there was no other way. There never had been. The countdown showed 7 cycles remaining. Jiho sat in his temporary quarters and tried not to think about it. Tried and failed. The numbers appeared on every screen, every display, every surface in the station. 7 cycles until the temple destroyed itself and everyone on board. 7 cycles to make a decision he didn't want to make. An elderly man entered without knocking. He was human, thin and bent with age, carrying books made of actual paper. In a galaxy where everything was digital, paper books meant someone who valued old knowledge. His name was Hyun, and he taught history at Earth's oldest university. Your sister sent for me, Hyun said, settling into a chair with a grunt. She thought I might help. I'm not sure I can, but I'll try. Help how? Jiho asked. Can you open the temple instead of me? No, Hyun said. But maybe I can help you understand why the temple chose you. Understanding might make this easier. I don't want understanding. I want to wake up and find out this was all a bad dream. Hyun smiled sadly. I felt the same way when I learned my wife was dying. Understanding didn't make the pain less, but it made the pain have meaning. Sometimes that's enough. He opened one of his books and Jiho saw pages covered in human writing. Old human writing from before Earth joined the galactic community. I've been researching legends, Hyun said. Real legends, not the galaxy's definition. Do you know what makes someone legendary in human stories? Being strong? Being brave? Saving people? Sometimes, Hyun agreed. But not always. Sometimes legends are just people who kept going when stopping made more sense. The farmer who rebuilt after every flood. The merchant who crossed the desert despite the danger. The mother who worked 3 jobs to feed her children. They weren't strong. They were tired, but they didn't stop. That doesn't sound legendary, Jiho said. That just sounds sad. Yes, Hyun said, it does. But humans have always found something beautiful in sad persistence. We make legends out of ordinary people doing ordinary things against terrible odds. A young woman entered next. Her name was Nari, a cargo pilot like Jiho. She had been on the station during the incident and had volunteered to help however she could. She brought food that Jiho didn't eat, and company that he appreciated more than he said. Still 7 cycles, she reported, sitting on the floor. The council is arguing about whether to evacuate the station. But where would everyone go? There aren't enough ships. They're going to die because I'm a coward, Jiho said quietly. You're not a coward, Nari said firmly. Cowards don't sit here knowing what might happen. Cowards run. You're still here. I'm still here because I don't know where to run. That's not true, and you know it. They sat in silence for a while. Outside the window, the dead planet rotated slowly. Kethara, once it had been alive and beautiful, covered in oceans and forests. Then something had happened. Something so terrible that even the galaxy's oldest records couldn't explain it fully. Now it was just dust and rocks. A reminder that everything ended eventually. Keltar arrived as the countdown hit 6 cycles. The ancient scholar looked even more tired than before, but its eyes glowed with excitement. "I've found something," it announced. "Something that might explain everything. But it sounds impossible." "Everything about this is impossible," Minji said, entering behind Keltar. She had been working without sleep, trying to solve the mystery. "Tell us." "The temple's reaction patterns don't match what we thought. I analyzed the data from every historical attempt to open the gates. Every emperor, every warrior, every legendary being, and I found something they all had in common." "What?" Jiho asked. "They all believed they would succeed. Every single one. They approached the gates with certainty, with confidence, with the absolute conviction that their legendary status made them worthy, and they all failed. So the temple rejects confident people?" Minji asked. "That makes no sense." "Not confidence," Keltar said slowly. "Expectation. The temple rejects those who expect to succeed." But Jiho didn't expect anything. He wasn't trying to open the gates. He was just tired. "So I opened them by accident because I wasn't trying," Jiho said. "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard." "Is it?" Hyun asked softly. "The greatest achievements in human history often happened by accident. Penicillin, X-rays, microwave ovens. We stumble into greatness while looking for something else." The countdown hit 5 cycles. Hana spent the next hours researching their family history, desperately looking for something special. Some hidden heritage that would explain the gate's reaction. She found nothing. Their great-grandmother had been a shopkeeper. Their grandfather had taught elementary school. Their parents had worked in data processing. Normal people living normal lives. Generation after generation of beautiful, boring normality. "We're the most average family in human history," Hana said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Not a single hero or genius or special person in 300 years of records." "I'm sorry," Jiho said, though he wasn't sure what he was apologizing for. "Don't be sorry," Hana said. "Be yourself. That's all the temple wants, right? For you to be yourself." 4 cycles remained. The galaxy's greatest heroes arrived to test the gates one more time. A warrior who had defended her homeworld against impossible invasion. A scientist who had cured a plague that killed billions. A spiritual leader who could move objects with pure thought. They all approached the gates. They all placed their hands on the surface. They all failed. The gates remained open only for Jiho, mocking him, waiting for him. 3 cycles. Nari found Jiho on an observation deck staring out at the stars. She sat next to him without speaking. They had become friends over the past days, bonded by shared fear and shared ordinariness. She understood what it felt like to be nothing special in a galaxy full of exceptional beings. "I'm terrified of dying," Jiho said finally. Not in a brave way. Not in a facing my fear way. "I'm just scared. My hands shake when I think about going in there. My stomach hurts. I want to run away and never stop running." "That's okay," Nari said. "Fear is normal. Anyone who says they're not afraid is lying or broken. Heroes aren't supposed to be afraid," says who. "Every story about heroes includes fear. The difference is they do the thing anyway, not because they're not scared, but because something matters more than the fear." "What if nothing matters more than my fear?" Jiho asked. "What if I'm not strong enough?" "Then you're not," Nari said simply. "And we all die together. And that's okay too. Nobody should have to be strong enough to face this alone. It's not fair that you have to choose." 2 cycles. Hyun brought more books. He read passages about ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances. Most of them failed. Most of them died. But some of them, the ones who became legends, found something inside themselves they didn't know existed. Not strength. Not courage. Just a stubborn refusal to accept that their story ended here. "Humans are good at failing," Hyun said. "Better than any species I've studied. We fail constantly. Small failures and big failures. But we have this strange habit of getting up afterward. Of trying again even when trying again is stupid. Other species calculate odds and make logical decisions. We calculate odds, ignore them, and do the stupid thing anyway. That doesn't sound like a compliment, Jiho said. It's the highest compliment I can give, Hyun replied. Our stupidity is our strength. Our inability to recognize when we should quit keeps us alive when logic would kill us. One cycle remained. The station descended into controlled chaos. Evacuation procedures began, though everyone knew they were pointless. Ships started loading families, children first, knowing that even if every ship left immediately, most people would still be here when the temple activated. Jiho stood before the temple gates. The light from inside pulsed like a heartbeat, slow, patient, waiting. Minji stood to his left, Keltar to his right. Hana held his hand. Nari stood close enough to run with him if he chose to run. Hyun waited behind them all, his ancient eyes seeing something the others didn't. I'm not brave, Jiho said. I need you all to know that. I'm not doing this because I'm a hero. I'm doing this because I'm more afraid of living with everyone's death on my conscience than I am of dying. That's not courage. That's just choosing the fear I can live with. That's exactly what courage is, Hana said, squeezing his hand. Choosing which fear matters more. The countdown reached 0. The temple began to shake. Energy built inside, visible even from outside. The station's alarm screamed. People who couldn't evacuate held each other tight. Children cried. Parents whispered lies about everything being okay. Jiho took a step forward, then another. His legs felt like water. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to hide, to let someone else deal with this impossible situation. But he kept walking. He reached the threshold of the gates and looked back one last time. At Hana, who believed in him even though he didn't believe in himself. At Nari, who understood what being ordinary meant. At Hyun, who saw legends in failure. At all the faces watching him, hoping he was something he wasn't. I'm just a mechanic, he said to no one and everyone. I fix things that break. That's all I know how to do. Then he stepped through the gates into light that swallowed him whole. The light faded and Jiho found himself standing in a space that shouldn't exist. The interior of the temple stretched beyond infinity, a vast hall where up and down lost meaning. Stars hung in the air like lanterns. The floor beneath his feet was solid but looked like it was made of captured sky. Everything glowed with soft light that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Behind him, the gates sealed shut with a sound like a door closing at the end of time. He was alone. Completely, utterly alone. Hello? His voice echoed strangely, coming back to him in languages he didn't speak. A figure materialized in front of him. It looked human at first, then shifted to resemble every species he had ever seen, cycling through forms too fast to follow. When it spoke, its voice was calm and cold. You have entered the Temple of First Light. You will now face the trials. Complete them, and knowledge beyond measure will be yours. Fail them and you will die here forgotten. Great, Jiho muttered. Trials. Of course there are trials. The space around him changed. Suddenly he stood on a battlefield. Bodies lay everywhere and smoke filled the air. Enemy soldiers charged toward him, weapons raised. A sword appeared in his hand, heavy and awkward. The shifting figure appeared beside him. This is the Battle of Keithian Gate. General Vexthor held this position alone for 3 days against 10,000 enemies. Face what he faced. Show your warrior's heart. The enemy soldiers reached him. Jiho swung the sword wildly, missed completely and got hit in the face. He fell down hard, tasting blood. An enemy soldier raised their weapon to finish him. Jiho rolled away in panic, scrambled to his feet and ran. He ran until his lungs burned and his legs gave out. The battlefield disappeared. He was back in the infinite hall, gasping on the ground. Failed, the figure said. A warrior would have stood and fought. I'm not a warrior, Jiho wheezed. I told everyone that. The space changed again. Now he stood in a laboratory filled with equipment he didn't recognize. Complex formulas covered the walls. The figure appeared again. This is the equation that saved the Valtorian species from extinction. Solve it in 6 minutes, as scientist Keln did. Show your genius. Jiho stared at the formulas. They might as well have been random scribbles. He understood maybe 3 symbols out of hundreds. He tried anyway, moving numbers around, combining things that looked similar. Time ticked down. 5 minutes. 4 minutes. 3 minutes. His answer was completely wrong. The equation rejected his solution with an alarm that hurt his ears. Failed, the figure said. A genius would have solved it easily. I barely passed high school math, Jiho said. I'm not a genius, the trials continued. Again and again the temple showed him impossible tasks that legendary beings had completed. Lift a weight that would crush mountains. Speak a language that existed only in pure mathematics. Navigate a maze with 10,000 identical paths. Meditate while reality itself tried to tear him apart. Answer riddles that gods had failed to solve. Jiho failed every single one. He failed the strength trial by not even being able to lift the weight off the ground. He failed the language trial by producing sounds that made the temple's walls crack. He failed the maze trial by walking in circles for an hour before giving up and sitting down. He failed the meditation trial by having a panic attack. He failed the riddle trial by answering with "I don't know" to every question. After the 15th failure, he lay on the floor of the infinite hall, bruised and exhausted and completely done with everything. His body hurt. His mind hurt. He had never felt more inadequate in his entire life. You fail every trial, the figure said, appearing above him. For the first time it sounded confused. Yet you continue. Why? Because the alternative is dying, Jiho said. And I'm too stubborn to die before I absolutely have to. You have no chance of success. Your failure is certain. A logical being would surrender and accept death. Probably, Jiho agreed. But humans aren't very logical. We're pretty stupid about knowing when to quit. The figure tilted its head, studying him. Explain. Jiho sat up slowly, wiping blood from his nose. My dad used to say that humans are like rocks rolling down a hill. We don't roll because we want to. We roll because stopping takes more effort than continuing. So we keep going, even when going is stupid because stopping would require making a decision and decisions are hard. That is not wisdom, the figure said. That is merely inertia. Yeah, Jiho said. That's humans for you. The 16th trial appeared. This time Jiho stood on a narrow bridge over an endless void. The bridge was slippery and broken in places. Wind howled around him, trying to push him off. At the far end, maybe a mile away, stood a door. Cross the bridge, the figure said, as Prophet Elinth did when seeking enlightenment. Show your faith. Jiho looked at the bridge, at the gaps and broken sections, at the impossible distance. He had no faith. He had never been religious. He didn't believe in destiny or fate or divine purpose. He just believed in getting to the other side because not getting there meant falling forever. He started walking. The bridge swayed under his weight. 3 steps in, he slipped and nearly fell. He caught himself on the edge, hanging by his fingers, his legs dangling over nothing. With effort that made his muscles scream, he pulled himself back up. He kept walking. Each step was careful and slow. When he reached a gap in the bridge, he jumped. Sometimes he made it. Sometimes he caught the edge and had to climb up. Once he fell through completely, and only survived by grabbing a support beam and hanging there for 5 minutes until he had enough strength to climb back up. It took him 4 hours to cross the bridge. By the time he reached the door at the end, his hands bled and his clothes were torn and he was crying from exhaustion and fear. You crossed, the figure said. It sounded surprised. Not with grace. Not with faith. Not with any skill at all. But you crossed. I'm getting really tired of your commentary, Jiho said. More trials came. He failed most of them in the traditional sense. But in each one he found some stupid, stubborn way to keep going. When asked to defeat an opponent in combat, he lost the fight but kept getting back up, until the opponent got tired and left. When asked to create art that would move hearts, he drew stick figures that looked terrible but made him laugh. When asked to speak profound truth, he said, I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm scared all the time. The temple seemed increasingly confused by him. After the 30th trial, the figure stopped him. You are not legendary. You possess no exceptional qualities. You fail every measure of greatness. Yet something about you caused the gates to open. I do not understand. Join the club, Jiho said. Nobody understands, including me. Perhaps, the figure said slowly. That is the point. The space around them changed one final time. Now Jiho stood in a simple room. It held nothing except a mirror and a pedestal. On the pedestal sat a small glowing crystal. This is the final test, the figure said. Look into the mirror. See yourself as you truly are. If you accept what you see, take the crystal. If you reject yourself, you will remain here forever. Jiho approached the mirror. He expected it to show him something dramatic. Some hidden truth about himself. Some secret heritage or buried power. Instead, it showed him exactly what he was. A tired man in his 30s with a receding hairline and a slight gut. Someone who complained about back pain and couldn't run without getting winded. Someone who had failed at marriage and at most ambitious plans and at being the person he thought he should be. It showed him someone ordinary and flawed and completely unremarkable. He stared at his reflection for a long time. Thought about all the ways he had disappointed people, including himself. Thought about all the things he wasn't. All the things he would never be. All the legends he would never match. Then he thought about something else. He thought about the bridge he had crossed, step by painful step. About getting up after every failure in the trials. About walking into this temple in the first place even though every part of him screamed to run away. He thought about his sister Hana, who loved him despite knowing all his flaws. About Nari, who had become his friend without expecting him to be anything more than himself. About Hyun, who saw value in ordinary persistence. The mirror showed him someone who failed constantly but kept trying anyway. Someone who was scared but did things anyway. Someone who had no business being a hero but was trying to be one anyway, because 2 million people needed someone and he was the only option available. Okay, he said to his reflection. You're not much, but you're what we've got. He reached out and took the crystal. The temple exploded with light and a voice spoke, not the cold shifting figure. Something older. Something that had been sleeping for longer than civilizations. Finally, the voice said, after 10,000 cycles, finally. A human who knows what they are. The figure appeared one last time, but now it looked different. More solid, more real, and it looked human. A woman with tired eyes and grease-stained hands? Welcome, she said, smiling. Welcome home. The woman's hologram flickered slightly, showing her age. Not the age of her body, but the age of her recording. 50,000 years old, preserved in light and memory. She wore a jumpsuit covered in pockets and tools, exactly the kind mechanics wore, exactly the kind Jiho wore on his cargo ship. My name is Yoonji, she said, and I built this place with my crew. We were the first humans to reach the stars, long before your Earth joined the galactic community, long before anyone remembered we had been here before. Jiho's mind spun. 50,000 years? That's impossible. Earth didn't have space travel 50,000 years ago. Earth didn't, Yoonji agreed. But humans did. We left Earth 60,000 years ago, a small colony seeking new homes. We found them. We built an empire among the stars, and then we lost everything. The space around them changed again, showing a holographic history. Humans building vast ships, humans settling 100 worlds, humans creating technology that rivaled anything the galaxy had seen. And then war, plague, disaster. Everything collapsing at once. We fell, Yoonji said softly. Our empire crumbled. Most of us died. The survivors scattered, lost contact with each other. Over thousands of years, the colonies forgot they had ever been connected. Earth's colony regressed so far they had to rediscover everything from scratch. By the time your Earth reached space again, 40,000 years had passed. Nobody remembered the first human diaspora. But you built this temple, Jiho said. Why? Because we knew we were dying, Unji said. Our civilization was ending and we couldn't stop it. So my crew and I built this place as a message, a time capsule, a test. We programmed the gates to recognize only humans, but not just any humans. It had to be someone who understood what we learned in our fall. What did you learn? Unji smiled sadly. That legends are a trap. That exceptionalism is a disease. That believing you're special, chosen, destined, it makes you fragile. When we were at our peak, we thought we were unstoppable. We thought our success meant we were better than everyone else. We thought being exceptional made us safe, and when we fell, we shattered completely because we had built everything on the idea that we couldn't fail. She gestured around the temple. So we built these trials. We programmed the gates to reject anyone who came believing in their own legend. Emperors, warriors, geniuses, they all failed because they expected to succeed. They thought their greatness made them worthy. But greatness isn't what keeps you alive. Stubbornness is. The ability to fail and get up. To be knocked down and try again. To be nothing special and keep going anyway. That's what you were testing for? Jiho asked. The ability to fail? No, Unji said. The ability to fail and not let it stop you. Every species in the galaxy has heroes. Exceptional individuals who achieve great things. But humans are the only ones who make legends out of ordinary people just trying to survive. We're the only ones who see something beautiful in persistence despite failure. That's our real strength. Not that we're better than anyone else, but that we keep going even when we're worse. Jiho thought about the trials, about failing every single one but continuing anyway, about crossing the bridge not with grace but with desperate scrambling, about accepting his own ordinariness in the mirror. Why did the gates open for me specifically? He asked. Because you weren't trying to open them, Yunji said. You were just tired and wanted to rest. You touched them with no expectations, no belief in your own worthiness, no confidence that you deserved anything. You were the first person in 10,000 years to approach those gates as an ordinary person with ordinary problems, and that's exactly what we programmed them to recognize. So I opened them by accident. The best human achievements usually are accidents, Yunji laughed. We stumble into greatness while looking for a place to take a nap. A door appeared in the temple, leading to a vast chamber beyond. Inside, Jiho could see technology that made his mind hurt to look at. Computers that thought faster than light. Engines that could reshape reality. Weapons that could destroy stars. Medical technology that could cure anything. All the knowledge of humanity's first empire preserved and waiting. This is yours now, Yunji said. Your species' inheritance. Technology that could make modern humans unstoppable. Make you legends. Make you exceptional. All you have to do is take it. Jiho walked into the chamber slowly. He touched the machines, felt their power humming under his fingers. With this technology, humanity could become a major power in the galaxy overnight, could cure diseases, could end hunger, could become everything they had ever dreamed of being. He stood there for a long time, thinking. Then he turned back to Yunji. No. No? She looked surprised. You're refusing? I'm refusing most of it, Jiho said carefully. Because you just told me that believing we're exceptional is what destroyed you. That thinking we're special makes us fragile. If I bring all this back, if I make humans into legends overnight, won't we just repeat your mistakes? Yunji's hologram smiled widely. There it is. There's the wisdom we were waiting for, you understand. But I'll take one thing, Jiho continued. Proof. Proof that humans were here before. Proof that we failed and come back before. Proof that being ordinary and persistent is more valuable than being exceptional and fragile. That's worth taking home. Very well, Yunji said. The temple will compile a historical record for you. Everything we learned. Everything we were. Let your people know they're not the first humans to reach the stars, and they won't be the last even if they fall again. Light surrounded Jiho, and suddenly he was back at the temple entrance. The gate stood open behind him. Beyond them, he could see the station in chaos, people running and panicking. But he was outside. He had survived. He stepped through, and the gates closed behind him with a gentle click. Hana reached him first, grabbing him in a hug that knocked the air from his lungs. Then Nari, then Minji, then Taiyang, then 100 others, all talking at once, asking questions he couldn't answer yet. Barracks approached slowly, its crystalline body reflecting relief. The temple has gone silent. The countdown has stopped. You completed the trials? I failed most of them, Jiho said honestly. But yeah, I completed them. Sort of. Captain Daehyun of Earth's diplomatic vessel arrived within a day. He was tall and official and carried the weight of Earth's government on his shoulders. He wanted to know everything. What was inside. What Jiho had learned. What advantages humanity had gained. Jiho told them the truth. About Yunji and the first human empire. About the lesson that exceptionalism was a trap. About refusing the technology because accepting it would make the same mistakes their ancestors had made. Some people were angry. They wanted the weapons and power. They wanted humanity to be exceptional, but others understood. Hyun understood. Nari understood. Even Hana, though she was disappointed, understood. The temple released one gift before sealing forever. A database containing the history of humanity's first empire. 50,000 years of records of stories of ordinary people doing ordinary things across 100 worlds. Not legends of heroes. Just records of daily life. Families raising children. Workers building homes. People falling in love and arguing about bills and complaining about their backs hurting. The galaxy found this history boring. But humans devoured it. They saw themselves in those ancient records. Saw that their ancestors 50,000 years ago had been just as ordinary. Just as flawed. Just as unremarkable as they were now. And had survived anyway. Had built an empire anyway. Had spread across the stars anyway. It changed something in human culture. made them less desperate to prove themselves exceptional, made them more comfortable with being ordinary members of the galactic community, made them understand that persistence mattered more than greatness. The Council of Nine issued a statement recognizing humanity's ancient presence in the galaxy.
It changed some political dynamics, gave humans a bit more respect.
But not much. They were still ordinary, still unremarkable compared to species with millennia of continuous history. Jiho returned to his cargo ship 3 weeks after the incident. The repairs were finished, paid for by the station as an apology for the chaos. Hana helped him load supplies, still talking about the temple, about Yunji, about everything they had learned. "You're famous now," she said. "Everyone knows your name. You could do anything. Become an ambassador. A teacher. A symbol." "I'm a mechanic," Jiho said. "That's what I'm good at. That's what I want to do. But you opened the temple. You passed trials that defeated gods." "I failed every trial," Jiho corrected her. "I just failed forward until I reached the end." "That's not special. That's just human." Nari appeared at the cargo bay door. She had transferred to a new ship, one that would be traveling the same routes as Jiho's. They had made plans to meet at stations, to share meals, to continue the friendship that had formed in crisis. "Ready to get back to boring normal life?" she asked. "More than ready," Jiho said. They launched together, 2 cargo ships carrying ordinary cargo on ordinary routes. Behind them, the Celestial Archive Station grew smaller. The temple was sealed again, its gates closed forever, its purpose fulfilled. Tourists still came to see it. But now they came to see the place where an ordinary human had proved that ordinary was enough. Jiho settled into his pilot's chair and rubbed his lower back, which was hurting again. Probably from all the climbing and falling in the temple trials. He made a note to buy a better chair at the next station, and some of that pain medicine that actually worked, and maybe a heating pad. His communicator beeped. A message from Hana. "Already miss you, be safe. And remember, you're legendary now even if you don't want to be." He smiled and typed back. "I'm not legendary. I'm just stubborn." There's a difference. But as his ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, as the stars stretched around him, as he settled into the routine of cargo runs and repair schedules and all the boring, ordinary work that kept the galaxy moving, Jiho thought about Yunji, about the first humans who had reached the stars and fell and were forgotten, about how they had built a temple not to celebrate their greatness but to remind their descendants that greatness wasn't the point. Maybe Hana was right. Maybe he was legendary now, but if he was, it was the same kind of legendary his ancestors had been, the kind that showed up for work even when tired, the kind that fixed what was broken because someone had to, the kind that kept going not because they were special, but because stopping required more effort than continuing, the kind of legendary that any ordinary person could be, if they were stubborn enough. His ship's engine made a concerning noise. Jiho sighed, grabbed his tools, and went to fix it. Because that's what mechanics did. That's what humans did. They fixed things that broke over and over forever until the heat death of the universe made even stubbornness pointless. And somehow, that was enough.